Okay, you've probably all heard about the latest buff to Fuze that is currently in the test server, and one thing that we all know about the test server is that if it goes into the TS, its likelihood of coming to the live build of the game is very high. And for those of you who maybe haven't heard, Fuze is getting buffed from 3 cluster charges to 4. And the reasoning behind this, as Ubisoft has stated, is to up his presence and give him more utility, which I think is something that we would all love to see. At one time or another, Fuze was our favorite operator because nothing is more satisfying than fusing some poor sucker who was unlucky enough to not be next to an ADS, so to see Fuze getting some love from the devs is fantastic. But the question is, will this buff work? Well, obviously giving him an extra charge will give him more utility, so they're able to accomplish their goal on that front, but will this buff increase his presence and pick rate in the game? Well, yes and no. It really depends on what group of players you are looking at. If you were to look at people who only play casual, then yes, I would suspect this will result in a substantial increase in his pick rate, considering how fun it is to play Fuze, and if you're playing casual, it really doesn't matter, so it's just more reason to play Fuze. However, I think that if you look at a group of people who only play ranked, I think there will be a small increase in his pick rate simply because he's just slightly better now. But overall, I don't think this buff to Fuze will accomplish their goal of increasing his presence when it comes to people who play ranked. And the reason I say this is because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why am I not picking Fuze? What is it about Fuze that makes me, or really nobody else, want to play him in ranked or a competitive setting? And I can say with certainty that it isn't because the lack of utility. 3 cluster charges in my opinion is plenty and can deal with a lot of utility, and while giving him a 4th may be enough for some to consider playing Fuze, I don't think the number of cluster charges is the reason that he hasn't been seen in ranked. I believe the reason he isn't seen so much in ranked comes down to 2 main reasons. One being that Fuze is an attacker that is a 1 speed, and his gadget is not very versatile. So let's look at my first reason, speed. It is my opinion that people will play the operators that they are most comfortable with. Even if you're in a circumstance where playing one operator over another makes more sense, many won't play an operator they need because they're uncomfortable with playing them. For instance, it's rare that you'll see me play Hibana. I don't know really what it is, but I'm just not comfortable playing her. It may be due to her small magazine capacity, or I may just have it stuck in my head that I cannot perform well with her. But regardless, even if we need a Hibana, most of the time I will pick another Harbreacher because I am just not comfortable playing her. And when looking at Fuze, I think it's fair to say that not many people are comfortable with playing an attacker that is a 1 speed. And I think that this is also a reason that Gridlock has such a low presence. Even though Nomad is better than Gridlock when it comes to flank denial, I believe that if Gridlock was to be buffed from a 1 speed to a 2 speed, there would be a noticeable increase in her pick rate. But people won't play her because she's not an attacker that you absolutely need, and she's a 1 speed. And so when you look at Fuze, he is another example of an attacker that you do not absolutely need, and he is also a 1 speed. As for the second reason as to why I think nobody really plays Fuze in ranked or any competitive setting, is because of his lack of versatility. Fuze can only be really effective when he is able to go above sight and rain hell from above. And yes, he is capable of doing a window repel, but that is extremely risky, and the chances of you being run out on are extremely high. And you cannot remove utility as easily on a window repel as if you were to go above sight. Because if you're above sight, you could, go to 2 walls and take out 2 bandit batteries from above, and then use your 3rd cluster charge to try to get an evil eye, which can be done in about 15 seconds. You can use all 3 cluster charges in about 15 seconds. Whereas if you're on a window repel, you're limited in what utility you can clear because the utility must be near that particular window. And after you fuse that window, you have to repel back up to the roof and then find somewhere else to go fuse. And you can waste about a minute just going to different windows and trying to repel. And honestly, it would just be so much easier to bring a Thatcher or a Twitch to clear utility, even if they can't get defender gadgets like barbed wire or deployable shields. And so Fuze can only do his job if they are in a downstairs objective. And if they are on an upstairs objective, he's going to be wasting a lot of times and risking his life to try to fuse on a window repel. So he's very limited in what he's able to do with his cluster charges. And these are just the 2 biggest problems that I see with Fuze. And you may see something else, but I don't think that the buff to his cluster charges does anything to solve the biggest problems with Fuze. However, it is nice to see the devs are working on Fuze, and obviously this buff to Fuze makes picking him more viable, but I don't expect to see much change. And while I'm glad to see Fuze is getting some love, I am kind of disappointed in Ubisoft for looking at Fuze and seeing lack of utility as the reason that he isn't picked. And I'm not really disappointed simply because they think, a buff to the cluster charges are going to increase his presence, but because they have a test server to try out changes and get experimental, but they don't do so. And before I move on to what I'm about to say next, I need to preface this by saying that what I'm about to say isn't me saying that I want to see these changes in particular come to the live build, but rather, why not have them tested out in the test server? So first of all, why not make Fuze a 2-speed in the TS and see how that changes the game? While it doesn't make him more versatile, it does make him more desirable to pick. And honestly, I think that is really all that is needed to increase his presence, because he already has plenty of utility. It's just no fun to play an operator that is a 1-speed, especially if that operator is not a must pick. They could also test out a version of Fuze where his cluster charges are throwable, so he could go under the site, throw them on the ceiling, and fuse from below. And this is an idea that I actually heard from Atimio in his video on the Fuze buff, and this would be a change that would make him more versatile and more fun to play. Because while it does suck to be a 1-speed attacker, if the attacker is more versatile, like a version of Fuze that can fuse from beneath, that would, in my opinion, increase his presence without breaking the game. And so again, I'm not saying that this should absolutely be in the game, but I am saying that Ubisoft has a test server, and they should use it for changes like this. Because as of right now, they're only really using it for small changes like this extra cluster charge, and the new version of Nomad that does 5 damage to you if it pushes you through a wall. And while it's nice that they have this test server so they can test that out and see if there are any bugs with it, they're just playing it too safe in my opinion. It would be like if Ford wanted a professional driver to test out a car and see how it handles, and the driver doesn't go over 50 miles per hour. I say, you got the test track, you got the car, go 160 miles per hour and see what that bad boy can do. Push it to its furthest limit before it breaks. And I think this is something that Ubisoft should adopt, considering that it has a test server, so why not go crazy and see what we can do with these operators, considering that they have a test server. And if they didn't, I would understand why they would just make small changes, but they do. So just, make a completely broken OP Fuze in the TS and then go from there. Find that sweet spot, because I think the best state the game could be in is one where all the operators are balanced and you never really know which operators are going to be brought because they're all so powerful in their own way. So will this buff change Fuze's pick rate? In my opinion, not really. They need to be looking at the reasons players don't play Fuze in a competitive setting, and it's not because lack of utility. They need to look at why Fuze isn't picked and try to make him better on that front, whether it be because his device isn't very versatile or because he's a 1-speed. Whatever it may be, they have a test server, so try to find that balance in there instead of just making these tiny little tweaks. Push it to its limits, find out what you can do with Fuze to make him a very viable operator that is a borderline of a must pick, or an operator that is just more desirable to pick, whether that be through the means of making him a 2-speed or just making his device more versatile. Use the test server and find that balance. Anyways, what do you think? Do you think that we will see more Fuze because of this change, or do you think that the reason Fuze isn't seeing much playtime is because of something other than the lack of utility? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon. That helps me a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to support the channel, check out my affiliate sponsor, Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy provides a delicious, highly caffeinated drink designed for gamers that increases your energy levels and reaction times, and it tastes great. I drink it every day and I feel amazing. You can go to rogueenergy.com, and the link is down below in the description, and you can use code Senator at checkout for a 10% discount on any purchase. And you can either get one of their starter kits for about $15 that includes a shaker cup and 5 different flavors for you to try out. And once you find the flavor that you like, you can then purchase a tub that will last you about a month. So check it out. But anyways, I want to thank you for sticking around until the end of the video. I am the Senator, and as always, have a good one.